All right. We are live with Cameron Levi's, right? It's like
Levis, yeah,
Canes.
yeah.
Levis. Okay, close
We get
enough.
everything. Levis, yeah, yeah. It
Levis.
works.
And we met at the Kentucky Parks and Rec Association, which actually y'all say it Kentucky Parks and Rec Society. Am I saying
That's
that
correct.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause
yeah. KRPS, yep.
I think the association was stolen by one of the other states that start with K.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no,
But
no, we did. Yeah, we got to have a good time at KRPS. It was great having you guys at conference, and I know you got to talk with a lot of awesome people, and a lot of people that I admire, great colleagues of mine, and so it was a fantastic opportunity to have you guys there with us.
Right. Oh, we loved it. I loved and that was our first podcast that we did on site. I've been doing podcasts for a while, and that's kind of one of the topics we wanted to talk about here because I know you run a podcast for your um for your city. But having it on site in person in the midst of a Parks and Rec convention, which is so much easier to just grab people and catch some testimonials, not only about themselves, but also about the annual convention. So
Sure.
one of the I guess components of the mission of the Daily Parks and Rec show is to drive attendance to those annual meetings that y'all have. Um, think what better way than just kind of try to capture it and then give y'all a promo that Terry can use for the rest of the year to try to recruit other people to it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I think it just some of the clips I've seen, and I'm super excited to see the interviews that come out of it and the final product. But just the little highlight video you guys did, really I think captured kind of the essence of conference, and just so many different people from all the different departments across Kentucky that come together with kind of a one mission, one mindset. Of growing every day, so that we can better serve our communities, and so yeah, it's a fantastic time, and anything we can do to help grow that, and connect with more professionals, more departments, more state parks, is definitely a win.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I am attending. I'm, my goal is to attend 10 of those this year in 2025. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've got a little competition going.
I saw
Um,
that this morning. Yeah, Illinois was Illinois in the lead. Is that right?
Illinois and
Yeah.
Michigan took the lead briefly, and then Illinois took it back. And then there's a convention called the Northern New England. I think it's like two or three states all come together and do one. They're uh, in there as well, but I have not reached out to some of my other people that I'm close to in the South, and I know they're super competitive. So when they when they catch wind,
That's right. My favorite comment. Somebody said you should go to Hawaii even if they don't have a parks convention.
oh, I
So
saw that. I
that was
saw
pretty
that.
good. Yeah,
That
just an
was
excuse to go. Yeah.
that, and I think I have one guy voted from Alaska. So
Yeah, that's awesome. No, but
yeah,
that'll be cool. Yeah, I think again, it was a huge benefit to us at KRPS, and so I'm excited to see how it benefits the other associations and societies. So
yeah. So tell us about how y'all got your podcast started. Whose brainchild was that? Why? What is it? What has it been like to found one for a city specifically?
yeah, well, first of all, I have to give a shout out, of course, to our public information office. It's like an office, like I mentioned, Raina sitting right over here. So Raina
Mhm.
Johnson is our broadcast specialist for the city. Debbie West is our executive assistant for the city of Bowling Green. The shout out starts with they were actually the recipient at KRPS this year of our communication award. Just because of how much they support us, at the Parks Department with awesome graphics, awesome social media, the podcast, the videos. We just had a meeting this morning about a new video idea to promote our Special Olympics and adaptive sports program. And so they're always willing to, work with us and help us, tell the story, if you will. It's not just promotion, but, tell the story of what we do in Parks and Rec. And so the podcast was something that Raina, wanted to start. And a lot of us for sure love to talk, and so it was an opportunity for us to again kind of jump in and tell the story of what we do in Parks and Rec in a new way, just sit down and promote our people, promote our programs, promote our services. And so that podcast started as the Talk BGKY podcast, the official podcast for the city of Bowling Green. And so it's not just Parks and Rec. They do different episodes with Public Works Department. The police department, I know, kind of does a Crime Stoppers cold case type episodes with our
How
public.
often do they air? Is it every day or?
Twice a month is when they come out. And so I know Ronnie Ward from our police department has come on to talk about cold cases, which I know is a big deal in the podcast world. A lot of people like listening to that kind of content. So yeah, this idea just started, and Debbie and Raina, will reach out to the different departments for ideas. And of course, I kind of jumped in from the park side, just with the opportunity to host those episodes for us. And I think at this point with Parks and Rec, we've been able to do maybe 6 or 7 episodes at this point. So, we did a couple leading up to the summer last year for promoting our summer camps and youth programs. We did one on aquatics, of course. A big 4-month, 5-month season for Parks and Rec is opening those pools and welcoming people to those. So we talked lifeguard safety and what our aquatic center was going to offer last season. And then I did one on our cemeteries division, which was actually a really fun interview because a lot of people don't realize that we, operate in Parks and Rec here in our community, our cemeteries, including our biggest one at Fairview Cemetery. And so interviewing our cemetery manager, Kathy, and some of her staff was a really just interesting perspective on all that Parks and Rec does, because a lot of people don't realize that's included in our operation. And then we did an episode recently that was probably my favorite, where myself and then one of our parks maintenance employees, who is our certified playground safety inspector, we kind of chopped it up about playgrounds. So we talked about playground safety, but then me and him are honestly like two kids when it comes to designing playgrounds and having the opportunity to do playground projects. So we talked about, our playgrounds here locally, some things to look forward to in the coming years. And then I actually spent the last half interviewing 3 of our kids from our after school program about what their dream playground would be. And it was just an awesome, fun episode for us to be a part of. So, like I've mentioned, at the end of the day, the podcast for us in Parks and Rec is just us telling our story, just having an opportunity to hopefully capture an audience of people here locally, and just tell the stories of our employees. When we talked about back in the fall, preparing for our downtown lights up night. So talking about Christmas, probably 3 or 4 months before Christmas was even here, I got to talk a lot about our landscape division that spends about a month and a half from Halloween until the first week of December, bringing our downtown park Fountain Square to life with hundreds of thousands of Christmas lights. So being able to kind of have this platform to celebrate them and the work that they do. And then, like I mentioned, the staff in the cemeteries, our community center staff, our aquatic staff, our maintenance folks that, help keep playgrounds safe and exciting. The opportunity to promote them and highlight them and just share with our community who they are and what they do has just been an awesome opportunity. And then, of course, it's promoting our programs and services. I think that is inherent, as the opportunity presents itself in the podcast. But promoting our people, I think, has been the most fun part of it, and just giving them a platform to talk about what they do.
How much information do you think is out there to be promoted by a city as far as what's coming up in Parks and Recreation? I mean,
Yeah.
I do a daily show, and I've done a daily show before on Bitcoin, and there was never an end of information. And my fear was I was going to run out of things to cover, but it seems like every day there's something in the news cycle hitting. And
Yeah.
same thing with Parks and Rec. There's always, I don't know, you tell me, it seems like there's something newsworthy, event-wise at least.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's never a dull moment. There's never a slow season. I think, your typical conversation, especially around the holidays, when you get together with family, well, how's work? What are you guys into right now? Is it your slow season? And the answer is always no. I mean, there is never a slow season in Parks and Rec, as soon as summer will, if you start on the calendar with summer, obviously you go into pool season, you go into outdoor sports, you go into summer camps. I think if there was a busy season, it would be summer. We always like to say that summer is kind of our time to shine in Parks and Rec. That's when kids are out of school. My wife is a first grade teacher, and I joke with her that they spend all year with them, and then we take them for 3 months, and then we send them right back, just because it's so busy. And so summer's busy, and then you move right into fall, with fall sports and harvest festivals and all the fun holiday celebrations of coming with that. And then, as soon as Harvest Fest ends, you're thinking about Christmas at the end of October, just as you celebrate Halloween. And in the midst of that, you've got Thanksgiving, and then indoor sports are, January through March, and then you're gearing up for summer again. And so, yeah, content is constant within Parks and Rec specifically. I mean, we literally could always talk about something that's going on between the sports, the programs, the services. We can talk about a specific park,
Right.
and what we're looking at. We're about to do a new 10-year master plan for our department. So we can talk about that. What's the future look like? And again, the creative side of it, bringing in the kids to talk about their dream parks. There is always something that we can talk about within the world of Parks and Rec, because honestly, our job never stops. There's always going to be parks, there's always going to be programs, and there's always going to be an opportunity for more services just to make people's lives better. And so ultimately, yeah, we don't ever stop, and we don't, ever stop talking about it either. So,
Yeah. So, what are some good promotion ideas that you say? Let's say there's a city where you could start. Let's say it's your first podcast. Hold on one second. I'm going to let you answer that question. I've got to open this window. You're not going to believe this. This is a classic going live issue. I just had a bird fly through a window, and it made it all the way through into the back of the house, and now it's flying around my head.
that's funny. I love it.
Hold on
This
one
is the
second.
perfect Parks and Rec episode of a podcast. I love
Yes,
it.
it is. Give me a second.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. Now, I'm either going to let him out, or potentially I could just let more birds in with that luck. Can you hear me
Yeah,
okay?
we'll be one with nature.
Right.
It works out good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some good? Let's say you're considering doing a podcast for your city. Never done this before. Don't even know what to promote. What are some good first steps that we can help maybe recommend for cities looking to
Yeah.
start something like this?
You want to jump in? You want to say anything? I might.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, I might have Raina jump in on this. Is
Yeah,
that okay?
absolutely.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
100%.
I'm gonna turn. Hopefully, the setup. I don't think it'll get too messed up.
Hello.
How are you? It's Raina.
Yes, I'm Raina Johnson,
Mhm.
Reina, traditional Johnson last name spelling. I would probably say to anyone interested in starting a podcast, find your posse in your city government. See who your talkers are. See who are interested in wanting to talk about their ideas. We have 11 departments with the city of Bowling Green. And of course, we started, as Cameron stated and mentioned, with our police department. It was honestly, that idea came from them initially. They wanted to do the podcast to educate their police recruits and cadets. So we took it, my supervisor, Debbie, and I were like, okay, how can we benefit and think win-win for everyone? So down the pipeline, we'll get more into negotiators with the police department. We've talked about fire safety with Parks and Rec. There's so many events that you can talk about. So if you're starting one just in your Parks and Rec department, just like Cameron had mentioned, start with, what community centers do you have? What services are offered, at those community centers? Who are the faces and who are the voices that people are going to meet and talk to when they have questions? Getting those people started in your own city government is the best way to do it. And we've had great success. We have many change makers and, very just highly dedicated staff members that have come on our podcast to speak about what they're, we call them subject matter experts. And, we've learned a lot. So that's what I
Yeah.
would recommend.
Yeah. So thinking about a new city starting, what are some like softwares, tech stack? I know a lot of times, like my first one, I started just literally with the iPhone, and that had enough in it. So
You'd be
maybe you can.
surprised at what your iPhone can do. There's an app
Mhm,
called Handy Recorder that will convert to an MP4 or a wavelength, and you can email that to your computer to
mhm,
use. I would start from the very, very bottom barrel. I come from a department where there's three of us. So,
mhm,
I'm video, my boss is social media, PIO, and we have a graphic designer. We've just now gotten to the point where we've grown to have a video intern where I can do both photo, video. So the way how it's shifted now, we rely so much on the lowest cost.
mhm.
Municipality, we can't spend a lot of money. So I've used free versions of OBS. Um,
Right.
we have a dedicated audio podcast recorder. I think we invested close to $100 in that. It works
Mhm.
great. We've used it for all 24 podcasts we've released so far. Um, Honestly, just your phone is your best resource. There's an app on Spotify for podcasters where you can record into the app now, and that doesn't cost anything.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of, for the podcast, it's the easiest way to talk about a matter of subjects and a variety of topics. And all you have to do is make sure that audio sounds good. So,
Right.
I'm more the economic friendly. I understand that part of, funding. So that's where we've gone with, those are some of the things that we use. But your cell phone is your biggest asset. This thing costs just as much, if not maybe a little more than some cameras nowadays. So,
Right. Right. And let me know if y'all need any help editing. I have a full-time editor that works for me. I just hired her, and she's in the Philippines, and I'm able to hire her at, gosh, maybe a tenth of the cost,
oh wow,
working from her home. She's got a couple of kids, and so she wants to stay at home with her kids, and so it's a perfect remote job. I record during the day. I say, "Here's my video," and when I wake up, it's like little magical elves have
yep,
edited everything down.
yep. We've gotten
And
more help with our intern coming in.
yeah,
We've been able to
yeah,
almost produce twice as many videos from when he started at the beginning of the year. And
yeah,
this podcast just started this year. So we've
yeah.
talked about it, tossed the idea around last year, got really popular in conversation, Christmas time last year. So
Mhm,
we spent the month of January banking. We recorded 6 episodes from what I remember when we
mhm,
first started. And because of my role, I'm split up. Between a lot of different things. So I only allocate just a small percentage of my time to the podcast, but we've still been able to edit edit episodes between 15 minutes to an hour and 18 minutes. And so
wow.
we've been able to do that in house, and we're really proud of that. We're a
Yeah,
small but mighty team.
yeah. So, all right. So, and I'd like to get both of y'all's take on this,
Mhm.
but where I'm seeing the market head as far as just in general communication content out there. I think we were accustomed to having just a local news channel that was its own business that put out news and newspapers. And then we had like the big legacy news media, like Fox, CNN, ABC, stuff like that. And that was typically how we consumed content. But with this social media layer, and then especially with AI, making it to where so much content can be just created that people are looking for more community based, locally created content. And I think this is an opportunity for Parks and Rec Department, even cities, to come basically create their own news channel and slowly get people that listen every day. Um, I created the Bitcoin Daily Show. I had the maximum of 15,000 live listeners on my largest show, but every day I'd have 500 to 600 people. I was just part of their coffee routine. And that's when I got the idea to come back into Parks and Rec and said, I foresee every city having their own, people that use their parks regularly, listening to a daily or a weekly show created by the city, by the park, director or somebody in media creation. And I see this as a future coming our way. But I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that at least.
I would have to agree with that. Just in the simple fact of video content is now king. I think all media content delivered by your cell phone is, what we rely on now. I come from a background from my education doing news and promotions. So I got to experience firsthand the decline and realizing people aren't sitting down at 5 o'clock to watch the news or at 6 o'clock or even 10 o'clock as much.
Mhm.
The difference is in our community in Bowling Green, Kentucky, we have two very, very supportive local news agencies who rely a lot on the community feedback, that input. So they write a lot of stories. They're very
Mhm.
engaging on social media. So for us as the city of Bowling Green, we've been able to, break our news, release our news first. And my supervisor has a background in news writing, all that print background. So that really helps us. So us taking with our background expertise, it's really been able to help, I think, the city see just how many numbers we've been able to retain. Because on average, when we make a post Monday through Friday at, business hours of the day, so when we're sitting in our desk working, we get about 10% of Bowling Green residents who live here who see our post, whether they engage with it or not. We're able to tell from our analytics that there's a lot of our information is getting pushed directly to their devices.
Yeah.
The fun side of that, earlier this year, we all see the TikTok trends that come through. What's the new song of the week? What is the new, thing that are people saying? So one thing about me, I'm 25 years old. I focus so much on, professional writing, my career. But if you tell me to talk like my sister who's 16,
Mhm.
I was lost. I endeavored on a creative project not too long ago where I was challenged with writing like a Gen Z person, maybe a girl or a boy. So this language that I'm literally researching, skibbity. Um, oh man, what's it? Slay.
Mhm.
You laugh when you hear people saying conversation, but we actually were able, my intern and I were able to sit down, write education based scripts full of this Gen Z language. And we wrote it as Gen Z writes the script. And we had one specifically, I'm coming to mind, is Frank Lamana, our fitness supervisor in the Parks and Rec department. He invited everyone to come check out all the parks. You had to come slay the day away and touch grass at one of our local parks. So, we're getting creative. And those
Right.
videos got over 300 likes on Facebook, over 150 likes on Instagram. And for a municipality, my goal is if I get 30 likes on a video, I feel so proud of that. And these got so much more. So I'm seeing the creativity and the way how people are noticing how we engage as city government and realizing that we can be funny and educational and informative too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're on our Facebook group, but you're welcome to join. I know it says Parks and Rec, but I'm trying to build a group of media people that work inside cities as part of the group, because one of the things I want to do is help promote Facebook pages, social media activities, mainly just media creation from the city level. Um, but as you were talking, there are a lot of good AI tools that I'm starting to use a lot more, and a lot of my team uses AI to basically get more done with less time. But you can take anything written and just say, write as if I'm Gen Z, and it might not be perfect, but it's a lot easier to edit something that's
Yeah.
90% of the way there.
So I'm
And
about
then,
50-50 on my little journey right now in writing with AI.
Mhm.
There's times where I can tell it's been, written by AI, but I'll say at least for those Gen Z script videos, those were written all by a 23-year-old and a 25-year-old. And
Yeah.
there's something to say about that because if you won't talk like that day to day. We make jokes and we send video memes or social media memes, but I'm familiar with. I have the upgraded Chat GPT-O, so
Mhm.
that has like a better memory feature where I've been able to start to separate writing voices. So I've been tinkering with it, but I'm so worried about just the natural part of, you know, the sensitivity to information that I'm typing, because usually ChatGPT doesn't know what in the world I'm doing with the City of Bowling Green government, even if they have the tools to research it. You know, they can pull different web articles. So it's amazing what AI can do, and I have found that resource very helpful. But I challenge that still writing yourself is the best way to go right now. People
Oh,
see
it definitely is. You really got to look at AI as a progression that you're going to find limitations today. You check back in 2 weeks from now, and those limitations are gone, and new limitations have been discovered.
changed every month this year. I can tell you
Right.
now, and I've played with it on and off this whole
Right.
and this year in general, it's shifted. I focus more on AI now in this later half of the year than even at the beginning of the year, because I'm realizing what assets it has. As far as content creation goes, I've been able to start building like schedules and calendars, like getting different captions wrote for different platforms on, you know, Facebook, it more likes links still, like very clickable, open limited forum. Whereas, you know, Instagram, you cannot put a clickable link on a caption. So GPT now has those features where it's tailoring those posts that you ask it to write for you or help you make, or even emails. I have friends tell me that they're starting to use ChatGPT to help with their email responses. Not too long
Everything.
ago. So yeah, it's amazing what it can do.
Yeah, check out Grok on X. It's Elon just finished building the largest compute. Actually, he shattered the world record on most connected GPUs. They said it was impossible to connect over 30,000. That was the world record, and he just connected 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs. I follow that pretty closely. But Grok should be able to outpace and outperform just about every other AI out there. But again, it's almost like if you don't check in on what these AIs can do in a week or 2 weeks, it's already evolved so fast. It's kind of scary to think where it'll be, say, in 12 months. I'm wondering what we're going to do as humans. Maybe just
anything to it.
No, I was just gonna say, Randy, you might need to help me make sure I get this right. But no, I was gonna say, for anybody listening out there, the answer to content creation and stuff in parks is get yourself a Rena, for one, but also to all the other cities, don't take ours. You need to find your own. So, Rena's fantastic, as you can tell. Like, I mean, it's just been, you know, what she's referring to on the Gen Z video. Frank, our fitness supervisor, we're a fitness coordinator. We still joke with him that he had no idea what he was saying on that script. You know, Frank has been with the City of Bowling Green in our fitness division for almost 37 years, and has worked there for that long. And so the script was very much foreign to him. But that video, Raina mentioned the likes, it got close to 25,000 views on Facebook.
Wow.
And so everybody's like, we need a Frank 2.0. And what it really was, it truly was a promotion of our parks. You know, I mean, just a unique way to encourage people to come to our parks and have fun thinking about being in the park, and see that, as Raina mentioned, like, we can have fun, like we can be creative. And so that's just been, it's just been such honestly a blessing, I think, for our department to have Raina and Debbie and Jack, you know, in our PIO office that can support our creative ideas and dreams. And then they'll also bring some to us too. And then together it's such a unique, you know, promotion of our departments. And Greg, I know in the highlight video for KRPS, you spoke with, you know, somebody from the team in Louisville, from Louisville Parks, and their marketing department is also extremely creative in the way their parks, and so it's just such an asset, you know, to not just promote your parks, but do it creatively in a way that's going to engage with every single person in your community. And so,
I 100% agree. And then also, anybody looking to create content or really create anything, it's more about repetition than it is about having the perfect shot taken. Think about basketball. It's not about taking the perfect shot. It's about taking 100 shots every time you step on the court. And
For
the
sure.
same goes for really writing, videography, going live. The person that has 100 live videos under their belt versus one that's trying to create that perfect one live,
Mhm.
it's going to be night and day comparison. So I think when it comes to content creation, it can be a lot about volume because you're going to pick up 1 or 2% every time you press record. You're going to learn 1 or 2% better, 1 or 2% improvements on every time. I don't think I've made one recording where I didn't have some little hack or technical thing or software thing, or you just get more confident in presentation and in the content.
Sure.
And then once, if you're regularly putting out content, um, you never know what person's going to catch that piece of content in your community and become a regular listener and then invite people. So I think it is important. It's probably more important to put out more content than it is to put out perfect content.
Mm.
Um, I know I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I was always pushing my team to to say, look, it doesn't have to be flawless. Just get it in the hands of the customers so they can tell us what's wrong with it.
Sure. Yeah.
And so,
No, it's and I mean, that rings true for in the world of Parks and Rec with our programs, right? Like in everything that we do and everything we offer to our community, we're constantly trying to grow. We're constantly trying to innovate, constantly trying to improve, constantly trying to just be creative.
mhm,
But that is a trial and error process. Not everything works, but then that evaluation and that reflection of whatever the content you put out was, or the program you offered, or the service you provided, or the parks, right? You're constantly trying to improve those parks, and that reflection is a huge piece of that. And just being
yeah,
able to sit back and be vulnerable enough to admit where the downfalls were.
right.
The only way you get better. So
Right, and there's also people you can bring up. I love your idea or your concept of celebrating the people. There's so many people you can interview if you I mean, you're never gonna run out of content, but good content to create is just maybe getting the aquatics director on and have her, introduce people to her aquatic center and the
right.
stuff that they put on every day. And then you can go on down the list of all the people that are basically running your departments and just go start with department heads and work your way down to the people cutting the grass and you name it.
Well, and it's just we have so many different personalities, so many different people, obviously that work within our organization, and it's just so fun to see them in a different setting than we normally do. To sit across a table from them and just sit there and talk about what they do on a daily basis. Be able
Mhm.
to tell the community, yeah, this is what I mean. We spent 45 minutes talking about what the cemetery does, and what that looks like, and one of my favorite things that came out of that was, one of our cemetery supervisors, Steve, was on with our cemetery manager, Kathy, and we have a program in our cemeteries where we bring in goats to help maintain, some of our older cemeteries. So we bring in these goats, and they eat the grass and keep it maintained. And it was just really funny to see a different side of Steve, who's always behind the scenes, always the one helping, maintain the cemetery, perform the services, that we do in the cemetery. But hearing him talk about the goats, he just kind of looked at me and out of nowhere in the middle of the podcast, he was like, I said, tell me about, our goats that come in every spring and, help eat the grass and stuff. And he goes, they're great employees. Can't say enough about them. And it was just like a really funny, like nonchalant little joke. And I'm like, man, people really get to see Steve for like who he is
Yes.
right now. And so it was just a really fun, aspect of that. And then, the playground episode taken, playground safety and turning it into an hour and 15-minute episode. It's like, I mean, that was awesome. It's something as simple as that, but we were able to talk about it for like an hour, and people got to hear, Tim Kickert for who he is as a person. And so, yeah, that's been, I think, the biggest benefit, and kind of the mindset, that we'll have moving forward with our parks episodes. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And there's so many, just like the goats, there's countless stories like that to be told that I think
Yeah,
are really entertaining, and it helps you connect with your people of the community.
yeah,
Um,
for sure. Not
all
many
right,
people
so
probably knew that their taxpayer dollars went towards employing goats, but
yeah,
they do.
and actually, them taking a lunch break is their job.
Yeah, that's right.
Just to go
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
constantly be eaten.
That's
So okay, shifting gears a little bit, let's go back to I'm trying to think if I think I want to end on your book, because that kind of, I think that's a good way to wrap it. So we'll end on your children's book, but before that, tell us, you know, what is it like, especially from a child, thinking about designing your own park? I just think that's such a great story. That's really only in Parks and Recreation that people actually get that job, that potential for
sure.
that.
Yeah. No, I mean it's definitely yeah, I mean it's one of my passions, it's one of the reasons I love getting to be in the field of parks and recreation. Is just being able to, see a blank space, see new property, that's acquired by the city, to walk out and see that, green space that is just, ripe with opportunity. My mindset, which I'll kind of get into, has been formed and shaped my entire life, just, by my family, to just see that green space and immediately envision people enjoying it.
Mm.
To immediately see families and couples and people in your community, walking trails or playing on playgrounds, enjoying a picnic, fishing in the stream, you name it, playing baseball, right, playing soccer, playing basketball, swimming in a huge water park, whatever the case is. That is just where my mind goes, when I see that space that we've been given the opportunity to develop or create. And yeah, that was really shaped, by my grandfather and my mother. When I was born into a family of parks and rec professionals, I truly did have a front row seat to what they did on a daily basis. My as we spoke at KRPS, my grandfather, was a parks director in the '60s, in North Carolina, two different communities in Washington, North Carolina, and then Greenville, North Carolina, and then eventually he was a parks director in Dalton, Georgia, for a little bit, and actually got fired, which is a pretty funny story for how impactful of an individual he was. But politics got in the way of his job there, and I'm glad it did, because ultimately that encouraged him to pursue his PhD in recreation at the University of Georgia, in Athens, and he was the first person to get his doctorate in recreation, at the University of Georgia, and that opened the door to him becoming a professor and moving our family to Bowling Green, Kentucky, for him to teach at Western Kentucky University. And he taught there from 1971 to 2007. And one of the assignments, that he did, and it was kind of the inspiration for my children's book too, was he would have his students, dream up and design a 60-acre park, to
Wow.
scale. And they would take a huge poster board and draw everything they would include in their park. So as a child, my mom, ended up going through the program at WKU and going into Parks and Recreation, and she spent her, almost 30-year career before retirement with the city of Louisville, where I grew up. But as a young child, I found and would see her park projects, from when she had my grandfather as a professor. And so, as a 3 or 4 year old, I'm looking at this drawing of baseball fields and trails and pools and community centers and all these things, and I'm just in complete, I'm completely enamored by it. I'm just soaking it all in, and then I'll grab my little piece of notebook paper, and not as good as my mom at 4 years old, but I'll try to draw out my baseball field and, all these things, this huge playground. And I'm like, man, I would put a massive playground, in this park, too big for any budget that probably exists at any municipality. But as a 4 year old, I didn't care about money. I didn't even know about money. I'm just dreaming about what this park is going to look like. And so as I look back on that, I mean, that was truly where I was introduced to my passion for the field of parks and recreation, and one of my biggest passions. And so, yeah, it truly is like the thing that motivates me every single day. It drives me every day, is that ability to be creative and think about a space, again, that you're envisioning your community enjoying, with what
Mhm.
you create. And I think we talked about it, at KRPS, but like you all asked me, what keeps people in the field, and I think it's many things, but I think in some sense, the creation of these parks or the creation of these programs, they're going to last far beyond me. They're going to last far beyond the next generation, the generation after, the generation after that. So you're literally creating things that will last for hopefully hundreds of years. That's going to continue to make an impact.
Right.
And so you're a part of something way bigger than yourself, in terms of creating these opportunities, for play, and for enhanced quality of life. And so, yeah, it's one of the things I love most, again, about my job. And I've been fortunate enough to be a part of some of those things. And, even currently in my job, creating some parks here, in Bowling Green and Warren County. And it's something that I look forward to doing for, many more decades, hopefully.
Yeah. I think it really is part of the human psyche to wonder, what is all this for? What am I doing? What am I leaving behind? What memory am I, you know, what impression am I making in this world, on this life? And you think about, like you said, these parks last for centuries.
Yeah.
Um, and even if some of the stuff wears down over the years, the original roads and the feel of the park and is laid down by the people that were given that land and just started working the land. It's just like a farmer works the land. He starts with a forest and then he ends up with a barn and a house and a farm, stuff like that. Same thing. You're given 60 acres. You decide where the roads go, where the lake is, where the facilities are, the bathroom stuff, and then people come behind you and kind of upgrade it. But it surely is a legacy that you can leave behind. And I think every human wants to leave a legacy. And I can think personally, a lot of my childhood memories were formed at parks, from birthday parties to family reunions to fairs to sporting events. I met a lot of my friends and coaches
Mm.
along the way, and so it really is an important job, and I think that speaks a lot to why the retention is so high in Parks and Recreation, because it's such a fulfilling job. Um, in addition to all the loads of money I'll make every year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I say that sarcastically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, and I think we talked about that. You have to attach yourself to something so much bigger, right?
yes.
And I was really fortunate to, again, I mean, my grandfather was my biggest role model. He was the
Mhm.
person that I looked up to the most, and I was very fortunate that, the first, I guess, really 5 years of my time with Bowling Green Parks and Rec, before he passed away, I got to spend time. He still lived here in Bowling Green, of course, and he was the person I leaned on the most. He was the person I called, and when I was, struggling with something that I needed his advice on, or if there was something I wanted to celebrate. And a couple of the last things, that I got to kind of talk with him about before he passed away was, one, I was able to get my certified park and rec executive certification, probably about 3 weeks before he passed. And that was something really important to him. Certification was, a lot of kids grow up wanting to do certain things. I grew up wanting my CPRP and my CPRE because I used to see him in my mom's office all the time, which
Mhm.
is kind of an odd thing to aspire for as a child, but that's who I was. And my grandfather, wrote his dissertation, on certification. And so I got to share that with him. And then the second thing was, right about a couple months before he passed away, I got to get to be a part of developing this new park. And it's kind of a long story, that probably is another episode. But this Jennings Creek Park that started coming to life in early 2021, and then was really kind of given wings, if you will, when some devastating tornadoes hit our community and affected that area. And now, 3 years later, we have a new park that's been funded with close to $1 million of non-city funds, with all kinds of development. That's just awesome. And I got to share my park proposal with my grandfather a couple months before he passed away. So this 13-page park proposal and this vision that I was putting together right after I was introduced to this green space that was blank, that had nothing on it, where my mind started running wild, just like he taught me to do. I got to give that to him, and of course, he made a lot of edits, right? So there was a lot of red ink on that, but that was one of the last things I got to share with him, which was pretty special because, again, he's the one that taught me to think that way. But him and my mother, both taught me to attach myself to something greater than the money. Attach yourself to something greater than the position that you're holding. They were both just really good, and my mom still is at holding true what she's passionate about, what they were passionate about. My grandfather was passionate about students in the classroom, so he didn't care if he was offered a position at another university to be a dean or anything like that. He wanted to be in the classroom, and he wanted to impact students. My mom was the same way. She was offered multiple director positions in the state of Kentucky and turned them down because she wanted to focus on adaptive and inclusive recreation. And so for me, and for every Parks and Rec professional, we choose and are intentional about attaching ourselves to something that's far greater, that lasts. And that's what keeps us around. That's what keeps Frank LaManna working in our fitness department for almost 37 years. He could have retired 10 years ago. Right. None of us know why he's still hanging around, right? I mean, we joke with him all the time, but it's because he truly does care about every single person that comes into that fitness center every single day. And so he's just one of many examples of like you mentioned, the retention is so high in Parks and Rec because our motivation is not something that's fleeting. It comes to us every day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really does have a strong purpose. I think Parks and Rec as an industry has a strong why, and most of us experience park systems, our local neighborhood parks, at a very young age, and so to be a part of that in a career, I jokingly say it's kind of like joining the mafia. They never let you go, or you never leave unless somebody retires or dies or something. But that's a good sign of a healthy industry where you don't have so much churn. People are happy to do a job, and even in spite of it not being one of the highest paying career paths, it's got a tremendous amount of fulfillment. So definitely encourage any young people listening, please consider going to a Parks and Recreation convention, either at the state level or some of the national conventions that are hosted, just so you can kind of experience a little more firsthand, and maybe even consider doing an internship for the Parks and Rec department in your local city. I know y'all offer some of that. A lot of cities do. I don't know if Bowling Green does.
Oh yeah. No, we with as much as we have going on, internships are definitely some of the positions that help us the most. And a lot of we're really trying to focus here locally, and I know other communities are too, on introducing high school students, middle school students to this idea that you can be a parks professional, that is a career field. A lot of people kind of fall into Parks and Recreation. It might be as simple as a kid goes to college, and one of the places that most students get a student job at is the rec center on campus. And then they realize, hey, this is kind of fun. I didn't know I could, go into the field of Parks and Rec. Is there a major on campus? Oh yeah, there is. Let me switch my major. But we're really trying to do a lot here locally. Our local Chamber of Commerce does a lot of wonderful programs with our high schools and our middle schools. So just recently I was at a program called SCK Launch with several different industries, several different organizations, from engineering to working in factories to police, fire, to media, all set up. And we bring, they bring in 3,000, 4,000 middle school students from, our county and surrounding counties to be introduced to some of these career fields. And I set up a table for the first time this year with a 60-acre park activity to allow kids to dream up their perfect park. And, seeing some kids realize that that's a possible career field, hopefully that changes their direction, right? They choose to major and study Parks and Rec or sports management or, a related field when they go to college, and again, recognize that that's a route that they can take, and they can
Right.
work in the field of Parks and Rec. So,
Oh yeah.
we're doing a lot to kind of focus on that younger generation moving forward. So,
Fantastic. Now, okay, so we got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to go over your children's book that you wrote. Why, what inspired you to write it, and tell us a little bit about what it is.
yeah. So, just a huge passion project of mine that, really was the product of my relationship with my grandfather. Again, I've kind of touched on it, but he was the one that introduced me to the field of Parks and Rec. He's the one that inspired me to pursue it. And so when he passed away in 2021, I was actually, oddly enough, I spent most of my life going to KRPS and NRPA conferences with my mom and my grandpa. I would be attached at his hip in the exhibit halls, grabbing every playground catalog that I could because I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And when he passed away, I had received a young professional fellowship from NRPA. So I was at the conference in Nashville, just about an hour south of us here in Bowling Green. And when I got the call from my mom that he had passed, I was actually in the exhibit hall at NRPA. And so I found it kind of fitting,
Yep.
that I was where I spent the most time with him when I found out he had passed. And so just in the, everyone who's lost a loved one, of course, the grieving process, looks different for everybody. But in the months, following his passing, I remember it was one night around Thanksgiving. My wife and I were visiting family about an hour away from home in Kentucky. And it was a late night drive home. My wife's asleep in the passenger seat. And I'm just kind of thinking, through all the times that I spent with my grandpa, all the moments that we had. And, I thought back to that 60-acre park project, and I thought back to, wanting to honor his legacy, in some way. And of course, I'm going to do that for the rest of my career, right? I obviously every day I come to work and, I get to go into a gym named after him here in town. And so I'm honoring his legacy through those moments every day, but I wanted to do something more. And as I thought about that 60-acre park project and my kind of lifelong dream to write a children's book, I was like, maybe this is a concept, maybe this idea of dreaming up your perfect park could make for a cool children's book, and an opportunity to inspire other kids to see the park, as a place full of amazing possibilities, as a place where communities are built and memories are made, and even more so, a place where everybody plays and everybody plays together. And so thinking through this, I started jotting down an idea for a children's book on my iPhone in the Note app, sent it to my mom, and she's like, yeah, I think you might be onto something. And so flash forward, just was able to team up with a friend of mine from college as an illustrator. She brought the book to life, brought the concept to life. I wrote the first draft for that in like an hour. It just kept flowing, and put it on paper. I was able to get some, affirmation from some colleagues of mine, including our executive director for our local library, Court Stevens, who is an author herself. And I can remember her first message to me when I asked her if she'd read my draft for a children's book. She was like, "No, I just need you to know this is really difficult. It's not as easy as people think it is to write a children's book." And she read it and wrote back to me, and she's like, "Hey, I actually think you wrote something here." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" And so ended up releasing that book, Home is Where Your Park Is, in 2022, the spring of 2022. And it's just been an amazing journey. Again, just to continue to share a little bit of who Dr. Little was, my grandfather, with the world, and inspire kids to see the park for what it is, and be inspired by what inspires me in the field of parks and recreation. And so it's definitely been a huge blessing, and something that I hope continues to, do that every day, inspire others.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for writing that book for the community. That's going to be something that's going to, I think, last forever. Hopefully, inspire some kids to follow in your footsteps, follow in your grandfather's footsteps.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's every day's a new blessing. And I've gotten to interact with a lot of people that older, who find out about the book. I'll go visit a school here in Kentucky, and I had a preschool teacher come up to me at that school, and she told me she had my grandfather for class, and she was like, I still have my 60-acre park poster board in my basement. And I had him in the 70s. So she's kept that poster board for 50 years. I think part of that is because he was a difficult grader, and so they put so much effort into it that it's one of those things like, I can't throw this away. There's no way. But
Right.
then other than that, I obviously know and believe that he impacted them, and then the project impacted them like it does me. So that's been a huge blessing, is just to have little nuggets of, my grandpa, come to life through the book. So.
Well, maybe we can have a competition here at the Daily Parks and Rec. As soon as we finish with this state competition on which convention I'm going to attend,
Yeah,
we can have people show their boards.
I would love it. Yeah, we'll see the creativity, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, look, I need you to help me recruit some Kentucky people to vote for Kentucky in 2025 so that I can attend the Kentucky convention.
Come back. Yeah.
I don't think I have one vote yet, but I only started this competition. I'm going to run it, I think, through February. I mean, through December and January.
Well, you can go ahead and throw my name. I'll nominate Kentucky. So you can put me on the spreadsheet, and then maybe Raina can be vote number 2.
Well, you got to vote on the Parks and Rec group.
Oh, well, we'll go do that. Yeah, we got it.
Go on the group and go under in the comment section and just put Kentucky, and then go recruit everybody at Kentucky, because I know there's like probably 800 members of the Kentucky Association or Society.
Yeah.
And I haven't told Terry yet. When Terry finds out, and I'm giving the executive directors their vote counts as 5 votes.
Oh, there you go.
They have to do a lot of work, actually.
For sure. Yeah.
When a podcast shows up.
No, that's awesome.
Well, thank y'all so much for hanging out with us at the Daily Show. I'd love to do this again, and maybe we can get like a second camera. That way we can have you and Raina at the same time.
Absolutely.
And just find out more about the podcast and other ideas y'all have. And then I'm going to create a different kind of chat group for people that are just in content and media creation, whether it's just part-time or you're just thinking about doing it, so that we can get a lot of that creativity flow in and hopefully launch maybe another dozen or another 100 podcasts across the country in different cities.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to edit this video a little bit, and I'll send y'all that in the thumbnail if y'all want to use it for whatever. It's, you don't have to ask my permission for it. It's live anyway, so pretty much it's across other platforms. So,
awesome.
And if y'all ever need any help with creating the podcast or anything, I'd love to pitch in.
Sweet. No, that sounds great. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks for promoting everything that we do.
Yeah. Great job, guys. Keep it up.
All right. Thanks, Greg. We'll see you.